Okay, well that would make sense, but like, okay, well there you go.
But now, if you have your surrounding vectors, or there's say 12 around your toroid, it's going in one direction as the center of your toroid is going in the absolute opposite direction. So wouldn't that give you like more of a control than it would?
No. So
No.
you need to
Okay.
think about when you make the fractal toroid at the fractal level above, you have to rotate the subtoroids at 90 degrees. It's just how electrodynamics works. Okay, they have to be at 90 degrees, the curl and stuff. So,
I got that.
sorry, what?
Yeah, no, I understood that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's only when you link those gravitational waves together do you get the gravitational vector through the center, and that will pull those in. And it's exactly what you see on the video, and it's what you and they will pull in to the point at which their fields are attracting and repelling. They're likes. They likes like. The same as Feynman used to describe. It's a self-organizing principle where things they like to attract each other to the distance at which another force that's embedded in them causes them to repel. And they will know that creating those particular structures at a certain quantization scale, when they put it in there, it will create a safe bubble. I would argue that it's in the Vesica Pisces, okay, in that structure, that then is safe to move because the charge and inertia and mass is negated inside the overall spherical structure. And then you can move that structure in exactly the same way in any vector you like. And I look at this from the point of view of something that I saw when I was 7 years old. I saw it in the sky. I can see what they can do. They can instantaneously change direction. So I don't have the mental problem that people can't move these things around. And it's just like if you've got a laser pointer, and it's not a laser, but let's say you've got a laser pointer, I'm able to move that around and make the cat chase it around instantaneously. And the further the thing is away from me, the faster I can move it over a distance with a set of servos on my controller, right? So if I'm up in space and I'm at a few hundred kilometers up, I can move my servo just a fraction of a micron, and it's already moved 1,000 miles on Earth. You know what I mean? And once you've locked the center, the topological monopole structure with the phase conjugated scalar waves and their interferometry, and you just move those two vectors around, it's literally instantaneous. So teleportation, perceptually teleportation, and it's as fast as you can move those servos to control the controlling cross beams.
With teleportation, would you not need
No, it's not
dual
teleportation.
toroid?
It would appear to the people inside that it's teleportation, and effectively to anyone that's experiencing something instantaneously appear, the field structure breaking down, and it just goes on the ground, right? It looks like it teleported there, but it's actually being moved in a relative time space. Like it's moved 2,000 miles in 1 millisecond. So from your point of view, you've literally gone through one frame in your eye, and it wasn't there, and now it is. Right. So for you, perceptually, it's teleported. For the people on the plane, it's teleported. No one felt any inertia, and it's gone from point A to point B. In all real senses, it's teleported. In practical sense,
So from
you're
somebody's I'm
sorry.
sorry. Well, from somebody's point of reference on the outside of your teleportation, would it not seem like you just disappeared?
Of course, it would. Yeah.
Yeah.
You unappear from one point in space and you reappear from another point in space. The only point that you see the transition is where you're going through the formation of the super tor above, the fractal toroid above. And that's exactly what you see on the video. I had no choice but to engage with this topic. I had literally, it was a former director, Matthew Villatt of the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, said, "Have you seen this?" And I looked at it and go, "Oh, well, I know what that is." It was like, I was very matter of fact about it because it shows everything that's necessary. And all I had to do to describe it was to use five slides or something from this presentation that I'd already given before this became public through the good effort of Ashton.
Yeah, and I think that the thing about it that I've learned is that it's somewhat simple. I mean, yes, it's complex if you think about it, if you don't have any background for it, but when you just think about it in terms of breaking down the empty vacuum state of space-time, like our reality is some type of a projection, and I think the double slit experiment proves that straight up, because we know that there is some capability of non-locality, and now all we're trying to do is figure out, how do we cause it? And in this case, you can think of what's happening here is like riding a wave, right? The plane's riding this wave, and it's doing so on another, if you want to think of it as dimension, so to speak, but it's able to do so where it can, from their perspective, move faster than the speed of light. And yeah, it would just then look like it's disappearing, right? And going to reappear somewhere else.
The other thing is that along those lines is the concept of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, because the size of an atom is relative to the charges that can express themselves in ordinary charge levels that we observe. So if you imagine a neutron star, it's like a teaspoon of the neutron star, like may weigh as much as our sun, right? And all that's happened is the electrons have come from being outside of a so-called nucleus and inside a thing making all the protons into neutrons that weren't already neutrons, right? And so if you have something that changes the dielectric constant of the physical vacuum in the nucleus, then the electrons and everything can shrink down. You still have an atom, but it's in its own space-time. It's still within our universe reality, but inside that space-time, you have a bubble where electric charges are represented differently because you've changed epsilon zero. And so you can literally shrink that plane. Now, if you take the Earth and you put it into a black hole, and the Schwarzschild radius, it's 8.7 millimeters across. So how big is that plane going to be? Not very big.
The problem with that, though, is then, like, you've got people on board this plane, right? And I'm just going to go ahead, since we're talking about this, I want to give...
You have to think about the people and the plane as information. And the information is represented in a stable state in space-time, which we perceive in our epsilon zero, our dielectric constant of the vacuum. Now, inside this bubble, you're changing that relationship. They're still the same atoms. They're still in the same exact orientation, but you've shrunk them. This is Alice down the rabbit hole, right? So this is literally going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is their frame of reference wouldn't even change from their point of view.
No, they would. See themselves exactly the same. They'd be on their iPads or whatever it was back in 2014. They'd be talking to each other, going, "What's that smell of bromine? Oh God, whatever it is." They wouldn't experience. But what they would do is, once they're fully in that state, they might have a stop of time. Now, from their point of view, they don't ever perceive the stop of time. They just, at one point, they're over the Andaman Sea, and the next moment, they're wherever they ended up, whether that be in another planet far, far away, or somewhere else that we might like to mention, Chagos Islands.
Interesting.
And it would happen so quick for them, the brain wouldn't even be able to comprehend the speed.
You would not perceive time.
Yeah.
So this is basically just an Huckleberry drive, right?
You go and look at the study of T.L. Carr. The T.L. Carr was, I think he knew the doorman of Tesla, and they ended up creating this supposed anti-gravity craft. And there was this guy who visited them called, what's his name?
OdySee Carr.
OdySee Carr, but there was a guy who's got like fluffy hair, and he met him and he put his hand into the aluminum. What? Ralph Ring, yes. Ring. So Ralph Ring said that they went in this device and they said, look, we're going to go down range. And they went down range and they told everyone to get some rocks and put them in their pocket. And they went back up range and they had no concept that they'd actually traveled. The guy said, can you now look in your pockets? And there's the rocks that are not here. They're only available down range. And so they had no perception of time change. And it might have been that they got out of this bubble and they were still in the sphere of influence of the non-radiating boundary. So their time was still stopped there. So they're like almost in a, they're almost like tripping. They have no long-term memory because they can't lay down the long-term memory because, in my view, long-term memory is dumped by the toroidal moments in the vortex and the anti-vortex in your brain that produces the toroidal moment. It dumps it into the basically the real cloud before they came up with this fake rubbish they call the cloud, which is the coherent condensate of relic neutrinos through the entire universe. So they have no ability to dump long-term memories. Okay. And so when they come back and they find rocks in the pocket that are not available in the local environment, they must have traveled downrange. And they even say that the device is controlled by consciousness. And that's, you literally become part of this other conscious entity, which is the craft that you're controlling.
Like being in a dream state, essentially.
Yeah. It's like being in a dream and you can't for damn remember what the dream was.
So why does the orb have this heat signature on it? Is it self-sufficient then at that point? If you think there's no mass inside, because to me when I look at it, I feel like there's got to be some mass inside this non-radiating barrier.
So if you go to my presentation, Jeremy Reese, there's a point where you've got like a single bar thermal extraction. Okay, so it's on the Shakhparyanov Mobius strip, a bit higher than that, than that. In the presentation, it's higher. Higher. No, higher. It's much higher up in the presentation. It's like one of the early slides describing the principles. There, the Shakhparyanov. No. Down. It's there. Slide 11. There. No, up. 11. That. You've got the yin on the one side, and it's extracting energy in a sphere at a distance. The yin is less bright in the center of the phase singularity. Why? Because it's fusing matter. Okay, and if you get two deuterons and fuse them together, you get 25 million electron volts. The yang is destroying matter. It's always brighter because it's unraveling the energy. It's not the energy gain from a lower distortion of space-time that is what you get out of fusion. You're literally unraveling all of the energy, the trap light that's in those baryonic and electron matter. Okay, and it produces a flash, an intense flash of light, but it also projects out. So you get a luminous object at a distance. So this is one way that you could create these particular objects, but it's not really a very controlled way. You want to create them from a soliton. But what I'm showing you there is that these structures can actually thermally extract energy from a distance. Now, it might be that that flash you see is actually the projected effect from this self-organization of those three tors into a super tor above, a fractal tor above, and the flash is actually slightly behind that of the dark area where it's thermally extracting energy.
And what is this? What is this burning? Is this like it looks like magnesium burning or something? What is going on here in the picture? What are we looking at? And what was done in this Shakhparyanov generator experiment here? Like how do it because it was this and what is the photography? Was it done with like a high-speed camera? You know, making sure like
yeah,
so exploding bits that like jumped a real long distance in a short.
So on the luminous object, you'll see that it has subfractal lobes on it. Can you see those? You can see in that where next to the word luminous, you actually have these hemisphere structures on the overall sphere, right? And they note this. And that is to do with the spherical organization because they form a crystal type lattice structure, which you can see in the patent by Lockheed Martin. Okay. But if you go to the next slide, slide 12, you can see the exact same Penrose staircase diagram, which is a demonstration of what the phase singularity is. And on the right, you see a Mobius strip, which has the same phase singularity. It depends which way you go round, whether it's a yin or a yang. And so what the Shakhparyanov research did is they created a pseudo monopole by first treating these single electrode, because it's a Mobius strip, with RF. So they treated the environment to excite the environment, and then they hit it with two contacts either side of the single wire, because it's a single wire because it goes twice very round. And the reason as it goes round, if you go to the slide above, you can see the NVIDIA Tesla simulation of down there, right? That is the copper strip. And what you're seeing in the blown up section there is a simulation, a computer simulation of the propagation of the charge separation of the positive charge and the negative charge on the copper as it's propagating around the structure. And what you're seeing there is positive space charge vortex and anti-vortex, and negative space charge vortex and anti-vortex, and that sets up the space-time charge space charge system that when you hit it, and it's in the process of doing it at that point, you hit it, it produces this phase singularity, and that produces the topological monopole. So what I'm saying is I'm suggesting to you is happening when you see that black flash. That is thermal energy that is captured from the single bar thermal extraction as described in the Lockheed Martin patent. Okay, it says one of the applications is single bar thermal extraction, and it's extracting that energy, and it's going to be behind the direction of travel of the new fractal tor that's just been produced. Okay, and so that produces a shock wave of cold, and it's sucking the energy out of that environment, and that is part of the way that's allowing it to propel itself, right? So if you go in my presentation further up, Jeremy,
so you think it's cold because it's sucking the energy out of?
No, actually go to slide 8. That's quite a good one. These structures, so that's your image there, Jeremy, of a green laser cutting through a smoke soliton. You can see that in these cases, it sucks things in from behind.
Yeah.
Right. You can see it on the two solitons making a fractal soliton structure. It's sucking at that impact. What you're seeing in that right hand 2017 water nanobubbles is two solitons on top of each other. The white areas are where gas that's dissolved in the liquid becomes nanobubbles, and the light is reflecting off the interface between the water and the gas. Okay. How is it possible that you have that heart-shaped structure, or that kind of leaf-shaped structure, where everything has got bubbles? That's because you have matter going into two singularity points on the yin and the yang, right? And it's literally a flat structure. That it's not actually like a mushroom. That it's actually two solitons overlaid at the golden ratio on the sacred geometry structure. That produces a torsion beam which has a lower pressure that fires out behind it, and it sucks also energy in, and that's what you're seeing in that little flash of stuff behind. So even though it's going forward down to the bottom left, and even though your one, Jeremy, is going to the top left, right, it actually is stretching and changing the space-time in front of it, meaning it has effectively a lower pressure in front. And behind, it's kind of sucking things in, which it's feeding itself. It's weird because it's feeding stuff from behind that's propelling it forward. It's really weird to think about it. But
so you
that's
think
what's
it's moving
going on.
forward in that situation, but even though it looks like it's going backward because of that's where the
No. I think the propagation of the cold wave is going backwards because you have an intense coldness. And so what we find is in our experiment, like in the lion experiment, the original lion experiment, the temperature was about 850 degrees. He turned it off and he attached a 30 watt, 20 watt light bulb, and it lit for 30 minutes and immediately heard this crackling sound, and air was being sucked in to the tube. And when you look at the temperature, it went from 850 degrees to nearly minus 273 degrees centigrade in 2 seconds. And that's because these clusters, which we identified, and you can see the marks of them on slide, where is it? Slide 15. If you go down to slide 15, Jeremy, that is the accretion disk in the butterfly wings. And in the center, you've got a black hole. That is where the matter has collapsed. And you've got the torsion beam coming out down the bottom. Okay? And that is where the energy is sucked in and spun in behind it. In the one on the right, that's HHO gas from Hiroshima Masa on tungsten for about 2 or 3 seconds, and it produces that magnet. Both of those are magnetohydrodynamic structures, you'll say. And the one on the right, you can see where the sphere is. And when you go to the last slide, I love this slide. Go to the last slide, Jeremy, and make it full screen.
The last slide in the presentation?
Not the last slide, the third to last slide, 42. Of course, the answer's on 42. It would be. Right. Go full screen. Can you go and just play that? Because I want to show you playing the animation.
How do we do?
Play in the top middle, kind of to the left there. That one. Right. Oh, is it going to play it? Oh, you've got it in a different view mode. It's going to be showing on a different screen for you. Okay. Stop sharing. Yeah. No. You have to quit out. Go the X on.
I'll be right back. I'm going to get a drink, guys.
Yeah. No worries. I need to do another interview in a little while.
You'll have to do another presentation on this.
Okay, can you click on your image, the alien scientist image on the bottom there? Can you click it and try and get it to play the video that's embedded? Click it up there. Go on the white area and click. Press play. Right now, that's your image. Oh, is it going to play it? Yes. Okay, that's the sacred. No, just let it play. It's got about a 3-second delay between. That's the sacred geometry on your slightly distorted structure. That is a golden ratio. That is literally the Tesla logo in exactly and correctly the right place on the 1914 patent. Now, look at this, where we are ripping tungsten apart, that circle with the carbon film coming off, and this is also a topological monopole, that exact circle of what is synthesized strontium from the tungsten with the carbon film coming off. Wait for it. It'll go round in a second. Wait for it. That is exactly where the secondary takeoff of Tesla's patent is. And now in 2 days before I gave that presentation, I thought that has to be significant. That is the point of destruction of matter or synthesis of matter or projection of energy. I looked at his 1914 patent. You could bring it up if you choose,